the beginning. Oh. Pardon me. I think I should do this here. There we go. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Emma Antolis again from New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. You heard my voice at the beginning, so I'm rounding it out at the end here just to talk about water chestnut. This is a pretty common invasive that you'll see through a lot of bodies of water throughout New York State. So it's a pretty simple 1-2 ID, so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. This is our third year for the Water Chestnut Challenge part. And again, we just added the jumping worm portion this year, so we have both an aquatic and a terrestrial component. So it's really exciting to see what the results are for the mapping challenge. So again, thank you guys for joining us. But yeah, so European water chestnut is a floating aquatic plant. It's an annual. And from Eurasia, you wouldn't have guessed it from that name. So Eurasia, it was actually introduced in the mid-1800s as an ornamental plant. And the first find was actually near us in Albany here in Schenectady County in Collins Park. So I find that really interesting. Can pinpoint it to the one first infestation. So what it does, it actually colonizes freshwater lakes and ponds, as well as slow-moving streams and rivers and canals. So we're just going to talk quickly about what impacts a water chestnut has on our water body. So it creates these really dense mats that shade out our native plant species. And unfortunately, once the plant itself decomposes, it reduces dissolved oxygen levels, which is not so great for fish and may result in their death. Unfortunately, it also creates this really dense mat, which makes recreation really difficult. So it's really hard to paddle, or you'll get your boat stuck in these really dense, tangled mats. Swimming is difficult. It's just not a good time, not the ideal place where you want to recreate. And unfortunately, we'll talk about the fruits in a little bit, but they're very painful when stepped on, so they're kind of a hazard. And again, unfortunately, they reduce property values along shorelines. They're not the most pleasant thing to look at. And yeah, so we'll get into now the identification portion. So when looking at water chestnut, we're going to first focus on the upper leaves. So they are diamond-shaped with toothed edges. You can see it here. I don't know if you can see mine. Diamond shape there, and you see those little tubes. They're actually shiny on the upper side, and they're on the underside, they're dull with fine hairs. So they're alternatively arranged, and they have these hollow air-filled stems, and they'll occur in floating clusters or rosettes. So you see a classic example here of how they would be arranged on top of the water. Now we'll talk about, here's some more photos here of the plant. So you'll see kind of these hollow, kind of bulbous, floating, air-filled stems there. So the submerged portion of the plant, the leaves are opposite, and they're long and narrow, and they have these kind of feathery structures that often replace the linear underwater leaves. Excuse me. So it's a good reference there with the spoon, so you kind of know the size that you're dealing with. It almost kind of looks like milfoil underneath, so if you're familiar with other invasives. So the flower, which is about in bloom, I think now in June, you have 4 petals, white, kind of pretty little flowers. And like I mentioned before, these are the fruits here. They're kind of hard nuts. They have these really long spikes, about 4-inch spines with barbs, and they can actually remain viable for about 12 years, which is one of the struggles of dealing with water chestnut, is that you have this huge seed bank that, it takes a lot of time and effort to manage. And size-wise, the submerged stem can be about 12 to 15 feet long, so they can get really quite big. So quickly, I just wanted to mention this part, which is so important for you folks out there, out recreating. It's just to make sure you're not transporting water chestnut by cleaning, draining, and drying your watercraft, as well as your equipment before and after each use, especially, I know in our local area here, Mohawk, Hudson, we have tons of water chestnut. And if you're going up north or any other bodies of water that are uninvaded, it's super crucial that you're inspecting your boat top to bottom. And this even includes your trailer. So often, I work for Paul Smith College, and we often got, in the watershed steward program, we got calls for a lot of people have found those nutlets in the carpet on the trailer, so places you might not even think to look, they can get stuck. So definitely do a thorough inspection of all your watercraft. And also just making sure you dump your bait bucket water where it came from or on land. So disposing of it properly just in case you're transporting any sort of portion of the plant. Control-wise, like we mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, when they're small infestations, they are easily manageable. But unfortunately, once you get to large populations, I just encourage folks to mute your line. Oh boy. Again, folks can just mute their line or on the phone or through your computer. That would be very much appreciated. So yes, if populations are small, hand pulling is easy when the rosettes first appear, so that's right about now, mid-June to early July. But unfortunately, once it gets beyond that point, it's very difficult to manage. So you've seen those pictures of just that heavy, dense population. Harvesting machines or herbicides can be used, but it's a very challenging task. Biocontrol is in development, so that's pretty exciting. But yes, they are, it's important to catch these water chestnut infestations when they're small and manageable, because again, once they reach that certain size, it's just a very challenging task, and a lot of money and time and effort will have to go into it. So we definitely want to try and avoid that if we can. So yeah, that was quick talk on water chestnut. So what we are going to do now is open it up to more questions. So if you have questions regarding iMap invasives or water chestnut, please feel free to, let's see, I have a question here. Please share through chat box or, let's see, or audio is preferable if you do it through the chat box. It's a lot easier to answer. So I open the line to everyone. I have one question here regarding water chestnuts. So are the nutlets / seed pods floating in water considered an iMap observation? Or is just the plant considered an observation? That's a great question. I will turn that over to the iMap folks.
I would say go ahead and take a picture of that nutlet and make an observation. And I mean, chances are it's in a water body that we've already had the water chestnut submitted for. But if we haven't had it submitted before, then that would be a huge clue that we should go out and look for the rosettes. So yes, please go ahead and make your observation and include the photograph. And you can put in the comments field that you did not see any of the actual vegetation, but you just saw the seed pod.
Great question. I also have a question from Elisa. I've seen volunteer events for water chestnut pulling. Are there no efforts state / county-wide to remove these invasions? I know there are quite a few efforts going on. I know, for instance, the parks staff is going out this summer and doing a lot of these removals, as well as the PRISM staff. So if you're looking for an event near you, I definitely suggest contacting your local PRISM, and they can hook you up with one of those pulls. They could be a lot of fun, I've heard. So
they are, especially on a hot day.
Yeah. So definitely, there's a lot of good work going on. But again, usually those folks in the PRISMs try to, attack those populations that are a little bit smaller. So yeah. I definitely suggest talking to your local PRISM coordinator. Any other questions regarding Water Chestnut or iMap? Again, we have our support team here willing to answer any questions regarding the app. Okay, let's see, I have a question from Bob. While looking for hemlock woolly adelgid, I've had problems in the field. If I walk away from the inspection site before saving my observation, the app will try to readjust the location.
Oh, that's a good question. So I would recommend that you save your observation and exit from the editing mode of the observation before you walk away. Actually, we happen to have our app tech support here, so I don't know, John, do you have any ideas about how to prevent the location from changing as you walk around, besides just closing out that observation?
You can toggle the GPS location update while you're recording an observation, and so if you uncheck the GPS location checkbox, I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact phrase, but that will stop updating your location in the observation.
Great, thanks.
However, I will make a quick note. One issue that we are aware of is that sometimes if you edit an observation after you've already saved it, at times we have noticed that sometimes the location will try to update to your current location instead of where it was saved, and so that might just be something to be aware of, and we are working to correct that.
You could always upload your observation and then edit it online. Maybe that's the safest way. If you want to make sure that your location's in the right spot, that you want to change like your comments field or something like that, you could go ahead and upload it to iMap and then log in on your browser to do the full editing.
Great. And Brittany Rogers made a comment that there is a new update coming that will fix that soon.
It is in progress.
It's in progress. We also have a question from Danica saying, will this presentation be available after the webinar? Yes, Danica, it will be available on the nyimapinvasives.org, the recorded presentation, and possibly maybe we can put the individual presentations as well in PDF format for if you want to share.
Yeah, certainly.
Do we have any other questions before we close out for the day? Great. Our iMap team is here. I think they'll be checking the email box if you have any questions regarding that. And if you do have remaining questions about jumping worm or water chestnut, feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to help. And again, this presentation will be available online. Feel free to share for any folks that you may have missed it. And I think maybe we can send an email update to those who registered online, you know, connecting them with that link.
And if you didn't register online, please go ahead and request an iMap account if you haven't done so already, and we'll make sure you get an account.
Great. So I hope to see everyone here on the webinar out there during that reporting window of the 5th to the 19th, you know, to report with both water chestnut and jumping worm. But of course, you're encouraged to do it outside that time frame. So, you know, please utilize iMap. It's such a great tool, and it really helps a lot of those, you know, folks in the invasive species field get an idea of where these species are located. So, yeah, and if any questions, again, don't hesitate to contact us. And thank you all for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys.